Welcome back to Tuesday's Thought. I am Jassett Crooks McGrowder, and this week we'll be talking about Jochebed. As you know, we've talked about this. This month is International Women's Month, and so our Tuesday's thoughts for this month are on different women in the Bible, and so also women in our modern day as well. And so we will be talking about Jochebed today, someone that you might have heard of or might not have heard of, but a very powerful woman who did something amazing. And because of her, we know of Moses. And we also know Aaron and Miriam because all three are her children. So I'm going to read the story about Moses that most of us know. And so we're going to turn to Exodus 2, verse 1, and we'll read and continue on. I'll begin, and it says, "And there went a man of the house of Levi, and took to wife a daughter of Levi. And the woman conceived and bare a son, and when she saw him that he was a goodly child, she hid him 3 months. And when she could not longer hide him, she took for him an ark of bulrushes, and daubed it with slime and with pitch, and put the child therein. And she laid it in the flags by the river brinks. And his sister stood afar off to wit what would be done to him. And the daughter of Pharaoh came down to wash herself at the river. And her maidens walked along by the riverside. And when she saw the ark among the flags, she sent her maid to fetch it. And when she had opened it, she saw the child, and behold, the baby wept. And she had compassion on him and said, 'This is one of the Hebrews' children.' Then said his sister to Pharaoh's daughter, 'Shall I go and call to thee a nurse of the Hebrew woman, that she may nurse the child for thee?' And Pharaoh's daughter said to her, 'Go.' And the maid went and called the child's mother. And Pharaoh's daughter said unto her, 'Take this child away, and nurse it for me, and I will give thee thy wages.' And the woman took the child and nursed it. And the child grew, and she brought him unto Pharaoh's daughter, and he became her son, and she called his name Moses. And she said, 'Because I drew him out of the water.'" And so, to give a background as to why Jochebed put her son in a basket and in the water, Moses, just to give a background of that, as most of us know already. So Pharaoh, there came a Pharaoh who did not recognize Joseph, didn't know anything about him, and so didn't understand where the children of Israel were coming from and who are these people. And so there were a lot of Israelites in Egypt. And so this Pharaoh said, "Nope, there's too many of them. We need to, stop the reproduction that's happening of these children." And so he asked the midwives to kill the baby boys and make, the baby girls were okay, but every baby boy that was born was supposed to be killed. However, these Hebrew women feared God, these midwives, and they chose not to do what Pharaoh said. And so Pharaoh recognized that, wait a minute, the population should be shrinking, but it's still increasing at an alarming rate. So Pharaoh said, okay, he asked the woman what's going on. And they said, well, these are lively women. They're not like the Egyptians. And so by the time we get there, as midwives, babies are already born, so we can't do anything to hurt their babies by then. So he came up with another plan, right? Let's get rid of the boys. Any baby under 2 years old, any Hebrew boys should be killed. And so he wanted them to be thrown in the river. That's what he wanted, and that's what was happening. Many babies, Hebrew babies, were being killed or being thrown in the river. And so Jochebed had her baby. And obviously, being pregnant, she doesn't know if it's a boy or a girl, but she knows that if it's a boy, she knows what the decree is. If it's a boy, it's supposed to be thrown in the river and be killed. And so she had her baby, and baby is a boy, and she, being a God-fearing woman, right? The topic of this lesson is that she did not let her fear lead her. Her faith was in charge and not her fear. So her faith was in charge and not her fear. And so what she did, she decided to ironically do part of what Pharaoh asked when I think about it. She got a basket, as we just read, and made sure it was waterproof and put the baby in it and put the baby in the water. And the very thing that Pharaoh wanted to use to kill Moses, now that we know his name, was the very thing that actually saved him. And it just shows you the width and the smarts and the knowledge of his mother. And so she did all of this, and she put the baby in the water. She didn't throw him in the water. She put the baby in the water where Pharaoh wanted him to be, but he was safe and sound in that basket. And as we know how the story goes, we see that Pharaoh's daughter came, saw the basket, asked her maiden to get it. And of course, this beautiful baby was in there crying. And we know that the baby was goodly to look on. He was beautiful, not only in the sight of his parents, but Pharaoh's daughter, and in the sight of God. This was a beautiful child. Jochebed had wit and wisdom about her. Miriam was sent to watch to see what was going to happen. She had faith. Lord, I don't know what's going to happen, but I'm putting my baby in the water, and your will be done. Whatever is your will be done. And I believe that she believed in her heart that what she was doing was going to save her child's life. I believe she trusted in God that he was going to do something to save her baby's life. She didn't just put him in there and just turned her back, but the sister was watching, and smart enough that when Pharaoh's daughter, got the baby, she ran over and said, I can get a nurse for the baby, a Hebrew, right? Because it was a Hebrew child. And we see what happened. Moses' mother was actually the one allowed to take care of him until he was old enough to go and live in Pharaoh's house. And I'm just thinking how amazing this is, that she didn't let fear of, oh my goodness, if I put my baby in the water, it's going to die. She didn't let that lead her, but she let faith lead her, where if I am going to put my child in the water, and I am going to leave it in God's hand, because this child is a beautiful child. There's something special about the child. And I believe the mom saw that there was something special about this child. And it just shows, as I said, with Rahab, that God have women in the plan. He has women in the plan as well. With all that Rahab did, she was in the plan of God as well. And so we see Jochebed, the same thing, that because of her, the great leader that the Hebrew children had, because of her faith and being in the plan of God and trusting in God, we see what happened. And you know what? She was even in the hall of faith in Hebrews, right? It says by faith, Hebrews 11, verse 23, when he was born by faith, Moses, when he was born, was hid 3 months of his parents because they saw he was a proper child, and they were not afraid of the king's commandment. Once again, they were not letting fear drive them, but they were letting faith take hold of the ship. Faith was what was driving them. And then it goes on to say, by faith, Moses, when he was come to years, refused to be called the son of Pharaoh's daughter. So we know that over the years, his mom was teaching him the Hebrew way when she was taking care of him. And she taught him about the only true God. She taught him about Jehovah. She made sure he understood that there is only one God. Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God. One. So only one God. There wasn't all the different gods in Egypt. Moses knew better because his mom taught him better. And so we see that by faith, when he was come to years, refused to be called the son of Pharaoh's daughter, choosing rather to suffer affliction with the people of God than to enjoy the pleasures of sin for a season. Just looking at this tonight, let us as women not let fear drive us to do the wrong thing, but let faith drive us to trust in God and let God have his way. And I know that there are many, many women out there who are doing that, many Christian women holding the fort, as they would say, and they are letting their faith lead them and not fear. Know that as a woman, you are in God's plan and you do count and you do matter. And God made male and female, both are needed. And so continue to be strong as a woman, continue to let God lead you, and know that he loves you just as how he loves a man. He loves all of us, his children. And when we get to heaven, there is no male or female. And the Holy Ghost does not discriminate when it comes to male or female. We just have to trust God and let God lead, and we will see the results. So God bless you. I hope you are having a wonderful International Women's Month. And all the men out there, I hope you're treating all the women in your life a special way on this month, International Women's Month. God bless you. Have a wonderful week, and I will see you next week.